Rashmit, appreciate you joining us. We will, of course, come back to you for more developments. Now, there has been a global push for moving towards a greener economy with economists, environmentalists and also tax experts discussing this transition. Surabhi Upadhyay caught up with David Linke, KPMG's Global Head of Tax and Legal. She asked him about the taxation policies, the pillars of G20 inclusive framework on base erosion and profit shifting, along with using taxation as a policy tool for the green transition. Take a look, and thanks for watching Business 360.
Well, protectionism is a risk, is what I would say. But I mean, I think especially with India's leadership of the G20 this year, this decarbonisation and how you incentivise decarbonisation of the economy is a key focus. I know I'm involved in one of the working groups on that. But if I think about how tax policy is used around the world, look, from a European perspective, they've had their emissions trading scheme for quite a while, but there's also been the introduction of a carbon border adjustment mechanism in the EU, which seeks essentially to tax high carbon intensive produced goods as they enter the union. So that's more of a taxation policy approach to, in a sense, drive the decarbonisation of the producers. If you compare that to what's happened in the US, especially over the last 6 months, you've had a key piece of legislation in the US called the Inflation Reduction Act. And all up, I think that included about $400 billion US of incentives designed to decarbonise the US economy. So I think tax incentives and tax policy, albeit in two different approaches, are really used in particular by the EU, but now by the US as well.
Let me actually get to BEPS. I think the move now is to quickly get to Pillar 2. That's where there's greater agreement, which means that countries will agree to a minimum level of basic taxation. What are the expectations from India? As you said, there was no mention of this in the budget, but what is it that the world is looking for as it looks to India on this?
Well, I mean, I think I'm optimistic that there'll still be an agreement on Pillar 1 as well, but let me come back to that. I mean, I think you refer to Pillar 2, which is essentially the global minimum tax approach. Historically, it was an important issue in the European Union. I think they have come out and announced that they will impose their taxes from essentially 2024 onwards, whereby countries will seek to impose a minimum tax.
And it's 15%, I believe.
Yeah.
India anyway has a concept of a minimum alternate tax at 15%.
Yeah, I mean, I think India is well positioned already, given the minimum tax rate. But I think there's a number of issues associated with the global minimum tax that countries are grappling with. Not solely an Indian issue, but for example, how are incentives treated?
Right.
But what about tax holidays? What about special economic zones? What about other types of incentives as they're considered by the global minimum tax arrangement?
Let's talk about Pillar 1 then, the base erosion, profit shifting concept. India has gone its own way by charting out the concept of the significant economic presence or the equalization levy. Do you see this path continuing, or do you see BEPS as a group moving a little more quickly to streamline how these digital global MNCs should be taxed?
I think there will be a resolution, and I'm confident there will be. It may just take a little longer. I think India led the thinking in terms of taxing the profits made from the ultimate consumer. That market-based approach to taxation, which was seen as the problem, not only in the tech space, but more generally, especially when you have a market the size of India's, an incredible, base of consumer
huge
power.
User base.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this move away, from seeking, an existing physical presence in a country is a thing that will go by the wayside in global tax terms. I think the Indians moved quickly on their equalisation levy. They've now got a concept of significant economic presence, which actually doesn't require people on the ground in India to generate that presence. And so I think you will see more of that going forward.